You are listening to the Push Media Podcast Network.
This is good shit.
Old man, look at my life. I sound like a muppet performing a mass or some similar religious congregation, which is obviously socially distant. Everyone's vaccinated. I'm alive.
Shut up, Neil Young. Shut up. Shut up. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth, Neil Young.
Shut your mouth, Neil Young.
Shut your old jobless hippie skank mouth. You are in contention for being one of the ugliest people alive still today. And if you think that's mean, if you think that's harsh, if you think that's unfair, you think I'm being a bully, I invite you to search engine Neil Young. Look at a picture of his face. Look at it long, look at it good. Make eye contact with Neil Young. He's like the Mona Lisa if she was fucking hideous. That's Neil Young. Look at his face, and once you're done looking at it, once you get yourself a good old peep at Neil's face, you ask yourself, am I being a bully, or are you terrified at what you just spent time in your day looking at? A picture of a living gargoyle. A living gargoyle who is maybe one of the biggest sellouts and maybe one of the better con men in history. The man who crudely inserted his name into Crosby, Stills, and Nash, none other than the man who left a woman who had his child with cerebral palsy high and dry. To quote Radiohead, I guess I'm in a musical mood. Honestly, I know I tend to actually start shows with me just painfully singing a song that I ironically find funny. And, to that critique, I say people are one-trick ponies. And if you have a problem with me doing that, I invite you to have just one trick. I invite you to be a pony who can do any trick at all. Because this pony might not have a lot of tricks, but this pony can motherfucking sing. This pony has pipes, okay? But this pony also happens to consider himself an investigative journalist. That's right. New sheriff on the farm, this little pony, My Little Pony Pocket, or whoever from someone's childhood, I guess. I don't know. They might have lost that one as I was saying it, but it sounded good in the beginning. What I'm trying to say is I'm an investigative journalist. I work for the AP and Reuters. That's what I'm doing. Because I'd like to talk about Neil Young. I'd like to talk about the man that sings like a Muppet performing a mass. The man who I get you're supposed to have respect for. I really do. I get he was important for music. And that's not me just trying to pander. He really was. I mean, Neil Young's been making music for decades. I think he started a music career in the mother-loving 50s. A simpler time. A time that a lot of people, from what I hear, and again, this is just what I hear out here on these streets. What I hear out here on these streets is that the 1950s were a much simpler time, completely free of social turmoil, any type of racism that divided groups of people in this country, and a time when music was pure and non-exploitative of others. That's what I think of when I hear the 1950s, and that's when Neil Young started his illustrious career in music, and those are the ideals of the 1950s that Neil Young is passionately defending into this new millennium. A millennium that is surprised Neil Young is still here. I think I could speak for literally the year. I think I could speak for the concept of time when I say Neil Young's not dead. Betty White died before Neil Young. Speaking is time. Speaking is the thing that observes all. The thing that is. The one true constant, arguably the only currency. Speaking is time. I would like to say very much surprised Neil Young is still alive and being a cantankerous old hippie who's just pretending to have morals, much like the original hippies, completely pretending to be something they're not. And in some weird way or another, some of them happen to be funded by shadowy elements of the government and private funding and banks that just don't have to answer to anybody. More on that now. And I know I can be a little crazy. I know I can be a little nuts. I can be a little crazy. I can be a little crazy. Put it in the garbage can to trash. Every now and then, I just start talking like E40. Because I have worked out in my head, believe it or not, there's a formula to what I'm doing. I have worked out this formula where I tend, and I don't know why, but I tend to just stumble across things while reading. And for some reason, I just want to read things. I don't know what that is. But every now and then, I come across something that literally makes my head 360 rotate like an owl and make me go, hey, is anybody looking? Is anybody paying attention? Did you just read what I just read? Did you have any idea this was happening? This is actually what's going on? That happens to me a lot. So because that happens to me a lot, I have to incorporate other elements of a personality because you don't want to be the guy at the party who just shows up yelling about Blackstone, shadowy groups within the government or the Rockefeller Foundation that might have an unlimited access to capital that are helping bring about the Great Reset, and there's clearly plans available online, but no one seems to be listening. By the way, happy birthday. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad I took a minute from reading about the planned end of the world that is for some reason available publicly online on CIA.gov to come here and bring you a Bed Bath & Beyond gift card that my mom gave me 3 years ago as a re-gift. I'm a lot like you. People are losing their minds. So, to act accordingly, I tend to be a silly little goose because it kind of balances out the seriousness. And I'm sure I have gone on probably a few minutes too long without clearly making my point. And you're probably thinking, what am I getting at? Why am I rambling about conspiracies, the Rockefellers, and Neil Young? Why haven't I just given my opinion like every other person? Why haven't I just shut up and dribbled like Aaron Rodgers and just given you my opinion on Spotify, COVID, Joe Rogan? Because, as a young white male in the coveted 18 to 49 demographic, my opinion is it's done. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to spend any time formulating one of my own because thankfully, based on my geographic location, the music I listen to, how many email accounts I have, the websites I visited, and who my parents voted for, I'm already on Joe Rogan's side. I don't have to worry about any of this, right? I don't have to put my thinking cap on. I'm going to leave that shit on the shelf, homie. And so, to give you my stupid, dumb opinion, Joe Rogan a moron, Joe Rogan a sellout, Joe Rogan literally 5'3". To give you my opinion on Neil Young a moron, Neil Young a bigger sellout, Neil Young literally one of the ugliest people still alive. I mean that truly from the bottom of my heart. Now, Neil Young, this is when you are probably going to get interested. This is when your stupid ears are going to perk up because I cracked the case. I cracked the case, okay? I really did. I did some hard-boiled detective work, and I cracked this shit wide open. Not talking about your mom, okay? Wide open. Wide open. Neil Young on to you. Because let's tell our story where all great stories end. The end. Because that's how stories end. What we know to be true right now, today. Neil Young wrote a letter earlier this month giving Spotify an ultimatum that they will either remove Joe Rogan from their platform for being a major catalyst for the spread of COVID misinformation that's costing people their lives. So, Spotify, you have to get rid of Joe or you're going to lose Neil Young. You're going to lose Neil Young's catalog. The musician whose career is 6 decades long, started in fucking Motown. The dude's a legitimate musician. I mean that sincerely. Truly, legitimately, a real artist. However, just like any other artist, if you are a real artist, we really got to stop this trend of listening to whatever the fuck they say because they are stupid. Artists are not the people you should be getting advice from. Do you understand me? Have I made myself clear? But seriously, do you get my point? We really have to stop going to artists and thinking that their opinions are informed, rational, and should be treated as advice, because they're not. Okay? Truly, artists are people who inarguably are the most impulsive within society. They probably are not prone to due diligence. They are not people that plan ahead. They are not people that read. They are what's called people that go off of feeling a lot, right? That's fair to say. Artists are crazy psychopaths. If they're talented, and we're all lucky, they figure out how to play the guitar and sing their little troubadour hearts out and don't go on a raping and murdering spree like a lot of other famous people that history has gone on to show us did those things. Artists are crazy folks. And crazy can be harnessed and put to good, or it can be led astray, let loose, and all hell breaks loose. So that's what we're dealing with when we're talking about artists. And when I say that, I don't mean I don't mean like actors. I don't mean Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, not to take anything away from his artistry, not to take anything away from the work that Dwayne Johnson's doing. But real artists, the ones that history has deemed culturally significant. Truly, I mean, I'm being sincere, like Neil Young, like Joni Mitchell, like Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan won a Nobel Peace Prize, and you couldn't wake him up from a drug coma to tell him that. I don't even know if he's still doing drugs. He might have just OD'd on Lipitor. He's another one who can't sing, and for some reason, everyone loves him. Johnny's in the basement, cook up the medicine, I'm on the pavement, what about the government? Shut up. Enunciate, you stupid fuck. Enunciate a little bit. Would it kill you? Somehow mumbling won somebody a Nobel Peace Prize. And that's what really pisses me off. Because, not to be Hannibal Buress in the Bill Cosby situation, but like, when you hear people say like rap today is awful, it's so dumb, everyone's just mumbling, can't even understand what they're saying. What the fuck did you think Bob Dylan was doing? You listen to a Bob Dylan song and tell me you can understand what the fuck he's saying. And I'm not even kidding. I can clearly more understand a Lil Pump song than a Bob Dylan song. Okay? Subterranean Blues, what the fuck does that mean? It means just as much as Guwap 4000, okay? It means literally the same, mathematically represented as equal. Bob Dylan is not a poet. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's an interview once where Bob Dylan said, and I shouldn't say and I quote because I forget and I might misquote, but something to the effect of like, he was asked by a journalist, how do you get the inspiration for your songs? Because, he was being defined as the voice of a generation at the time when the 60s and the counterculture movement that was funded by the CIA and kind of just, controlled the entire time and manipulated towards whatever the direction they fucking wanted it to. How do you get the inspiration, Bob, to write the songs that, help the CIA get their message out? And Bob Dylan said, I'm serious, look this up for yourself. Something along the lines as, well, I made a deal with the devil, journalist. I don't know. I don't even remember writing them. I made a deal with the devil. That's how I get the inspiration. You happy now? But enough about Bob. On to Neil. Neil Young, by the way, in 1985, and I just came across this while trying to read about Neil, but it really made me laugh. In 1985, Neil had some very controversial opinions about the origins of AIDS and who was spreading it. And I'll give you a hint. Neil thought the gays should be avoided, to put it lightly. During an interview in 1985, Neil Young once told a journalist, you go into the grocery store and you see a and you're checking out. You don't want to handling your potatoes. That is a quote from Neil Young. And I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to beep both uses of my word That's definitely going to be beeped out. Jesus H. Christ. We're probably going to beep out. Back to the episode. So Neil Young, crazy person and not a stranger to controversial opinions, but somehow has become very mainstream. Neil Young, he stuck to his guns. And Spotify said, hey, we just gave $100 million to this 5'3" moron. We kind of got to ride this one out. Plus, they had to have been thinking on some level, like most people, reacting on Twitter, who the fuck is Neil Young? Who cares? Joe Rogan's a genius. He's a professor. He is a prophet. He is the second incarnation of Muhammad. I shouldn't have said that at all. Definitely shouldn't have. But what happened? It did. So Neil Young pulls his music. Joni Mitchell, in solidarity with Neil Young, pulls her music. Now, Spotify, who I guess didn't think this was going to be a big deal, they lost like a couple billy in market share. It's a big deal. I didn't see that shit coming. I didn't think it would affect that much. Neil Young sounds like a canoe. Neil Young sounds like a kazoo. I fucked that up. I fucked up the potential for what could have been really the highlight joke of the episode, but fuck it. Neil Young, that's it, right? You would think the end of the story is just him being an old fuck trying to get some goodwill about COVID or whatever and shit on Joe Rogan because it's the cool thing to do. You would think that's where the story ends. But that's where we, here at the Colin Coyle podcast, we dig deeper. We do investigative journalism, and we do fucking silly little goose things because I'm a silly little goose, I'm a strange little bird, and I'm a hard-hitting journalist. Here we go. So earlier this month, just before Neil Young issued his ultimatum to Spotify, Neil Young sold 50% of his music catalog to a company called Hipgnosis. Interesting title. And it's also spelled the most eye-rolly way imaginable. Hip, the word from hipster, and gnosis, the word from Gnostic. That's how it's spelled. But the reason this is significant, the reason it's significant that Neil Young, the guy who has such an integrity and artistic value to his work, sold 50% of it to this company why would you think it matters at all? Well, here's why it matters. Because Hipgnosis, not long before they did their deal with Neil Young, was recently bought out by none other than Blackstone. Now, Blackstone, you may have heard, if you're someone who's a moron and you're wrong, but you have visited parts of the internet that express certain levels of doubt about the events that happened in New York in 2001 and why there's some buildings that aren't there anymore. If you're a crazy person who's visited any part of the internet that expresses any doubt about the events of that day or the buildings that fell or how many were there, you mean there was more than just the two buildings? What was Tower 7 search engine? If you are someone who's visited any of those places, you've probably seen the word Blackstone. And Blackstone is an asset management fund. It's and I don't want to use financial terms because a lot of times when people hear financial terms, they check out completely. That's probably by design because they just sound hard and boring and who wants to pay attention? That has to not be an accident, I would think. Anyway, for all colloquialisms, motherfucker, let's just call Blackstone a collection of bad bankers. Now, this collection of bad bankers was started by Steven Schwartzman, who, just fun fact for you, proud alum of Yale University, close friend of George W. Bush, who he met at the social club known as the Skull and Bones during a ceremony in which they were robed and in a masturbatory star circle selecting freshmen to steal the remains of a Native American chief. Now, that's interesting, right? That's very interesting indeed. The other guy that Steven Schwartzman started Blackstone with is named Peter Peterson. I swear, I'm not making that up. Man's name's like Dick and then a formal way to say Dick again. Stupid. It is kind of funny with names sometimes. Name's Peter Peterson. Name's Richard Hickey. Friends call me Dick. You can call me Dick Hickey and Peter Peterson. I'm a Peter gazing, pocket watching, limousine riding. Woo! I'm here to head the Trilateral Commission. So Peter Peterson, before he helped Steven Schwartzman set up the Blackstone Group, he at one point was the head of the Trilateral Commission, which, if you've read any conspiracy theory at all, they're probably responsible for. And the Trilateral Commission is pretty much the modern day foundation for the Rockefellers. You may have heard of that name because they're one of the 13 families that control the world. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true. You've heard the name Rockefeller because that's what the 30 Rock show place is named after, with the big tree and the ice skating rink. You know what I mean? Rockefeller. Oh, you talking about Rockefeller? You talking about the Rockefellers? Oh, I know the Rockefellers. Yeah, the Rockefellers. Yeah, they're the family that Jay-Z started his sweatpants business company on, right? Sean Rockaway Jersey Sweatpants Incorporated Inc. LLC. right? That's the Rockefellers? No. The Rockefellers are not the organization involved in the great economic reset that's helped bringing about a complete new way of life that's completely disincentivizing the idea of owning property. That's not the Rockefellers. The Rockefellers are Jay-Z Sweatpants Incorporated company. That New York accent kind of just ended up being my Mucinex pitch again. Isn't it so great that I have running themes on the joke? Running themes on the joke. That's called a motif, motherfucker. Isn't it great there's running themes on the show now? Because, like, you know, one of the other running themes I'm sure you're familiar with is the Mormons. Hate them. Bad group of people. And just last show, I talked about the Mormons, just letting you know that the Mormons were the group that owns Ancestry.com. And that's scary. Why would a religious organization for profit that baptizes dead people also own the largest genetic database of people in the world? That should raise at least one Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson eyebrow, right? Well, I did a little research, and I didn't even mean to, but this is just how my life works, and the Mormons are always going to be vaguely associated with it. Turns out, Ancestry.com is not owned by the Mormons. Ancestry.com was recently purchased by Blackstone. Recently purchased by the shadowy bad bankers who were friends and college classmates with George W. Bush from the Skull and Bones Society at Yale that kidnapped Geronimo's head and co-partnered with the guy that headed the Trilateral Commission and acted as a mouthpiece for the Rockefeller family. That one. Why would they want to buy the largest genetic database available today? That seems a little weird. Seems a little weird that the business that seems to be buying up real estate and is essentially the global slumlord of the world and is helping create a society in which nobody can own property anymore and making everyone rent, you'll essentially own nothing and you'll be happy. Why is that company also buying a genetic database? That's fucking strange. That's two Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson eyebrows if you ask this honky. So to help you bring all of the pieces together and refresh you, Neil Young sells his music catalog to a company that was a month prior purchased by Blackstone, the shadowy organization allegedly responsible for 9/11 conspiracies in the darkest corners of the internet that was started by a guy who went to Yale University with George H.W. Bush and met him in the Skull and Bones masturbatory circle meet and greet and partnered with the guy who used to head the Trilateral Commission, who was the mouthpiece for the Rockefeller Foundation. Why would that company purchase the company that Neil Young just sold his music to? That's weird. Okay, so that's interesting. Now, keeping in mind, Neil Young, the ultimatum he gave Spotify is over misinformation about the vaccine particular. And the misinformation he's claiming is Joe Rogan promoting a hesitancy about the vaccine. So Neil Young sells catalog to company owned by Blackstone. Blackstone also buys Ancestry.com, the largest genetic database of people in the world, now having all of your health information down to your molecular core MF. And that company, who now is financially staked in Neil Young, who gave Neil Young $50 million to fuck off and just garner public attention until literally the concept of time shows him mercy and stops his ugly life from happening. He gets his fucking cash, then he gets righteous on Twitter, tries to get some goodwill, come after Joe Rogan, because that's the hot thing to do, and tells everyone you can't listen to him. You have to have absolutely no hesitancy at all about putting something experimental into your body. Pay no attention to the fact that the group that just sent me into a retirement and gave me enough money for my 4 times great-great-grandchildren to not have to worry and end up in rehab because they're still living in Malibu in the year 3000, because that company that gave me all of that money also just bought the largest genetic database that used to be owned by the Mormons, the biggest villain ever of all stories. What? Neil Young causing a big hubba about people needing to not have any skepticism about vaccines at all. right after getting $50 million from a company that just bought everyone's genetic and health records. That is weird. It's very weird. I'm an investigative journalist. I'm a silly little goose. I don't ever want to be the guy who defends Joe Rogan either. I think I've made my point clear on that. I don't really like him that much. I used to dig him. I think he serves a point. I think he long ago lost that point. I think he got corrupted by shiny things, toys, promise of moon shoes, or at least 3-inch heels, just to get him to 5'6". And he took the money. He took the bag. I don't have a huge problem with that. I think he's a disingenuous little bitch for just letting episodes of his get taken down, claiming that's not happening, and pretty much just lying because he just got a big lump sum. That's fine. I get it. It's disappointing, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna have heroes in this world, you fucking moron? What are you gonna look up to people? What are you gonna not think for yourself? What are you just gonna take the advice and opinions of others and spout them as fact? Just do that. If you're in a demographic, the good news is you don't have to think. You don't have to do any work. You don't have to think. You don't have to look. You don't have to read. Remember how school was so stressful? Do you remember when you were in school and you just weren't a test taker? You know that part of school where you had to show us that you learned stuff? That little detail, the thing you weren't good at that caused you so much anxiety? Notwithstanding the Ritalin your parents had you on since you were 8 months old? You don't have to worry about any of that because your opinion is decided. Most of you are probably on the side of take your vaccines, take your medicine, shut the fuck up. Here's your I voted and got vaccinated sticker from the same day, which every year will happen on January 6th in memoriam for the selfies lost and the Capitol Police who continue to commit suicide a year after that event. Neil Young is a fake-ass hippie, all right? Joe Rogan's a fucking moron. I don't want to defend him, but in the case of Neil Young, the fake-ass hippie, and Joe Rogan, the short moron, unfortunately, I'm on Joe Rogan's side, and I didn't think I was. And I actually wasn't on Joe Rogan's side for most of the time I knew about this story. Until I decided to do a little bit of reading, until I decided, maybe I should figure out what the fuck I'm going to talk about because I can't just ramble. This isn't spoken word. I'm trying to have something to report on. I found this little ditty by accident. If you were to tell me, hey, were you expecting to find out that somehow Blackstone, the shadowy organization with ties to the Rockefeller and the Trilateral Commission that may or may not be buying up property to help bring about the great economic reset. Hey, you remember that commercial? You remember that company? That company just bought Ancestry.com, and that company also just bought the company that just bought the rights to Neil Young as a person. For the amount of money they gave him, fuck 50% of his catalog, they gave him money to buy him as a person. They bought his mouth. They bought it. And then they said, hey, Neil, the $50 million that we just gave you, that $50 million in shadowy blood money that we probably took from the Dulce base that's, using humans as food, the money we just took from that budget, we're going to give it to you. And you're going to give Spotify, you're going to give those dumb Swedes who I guess maybe are trying to believe in free speech, maybe, I don't know. But they're starting to lose that battle because Blackstone's on the other side of the fight. You're going to give them an ultimatum about the short moron with the podcast spouting off about ivermectin. Now, I'm not promoting ivermectin at all. Do I like ivermectin because of all the medicines? It's one of the more easy to pronounce? Absolutely. But that's also why I like Robitussin. Or Tussin, as my auntie used to call it. I shouldn't do that. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to fucking read, okay? You're going to pay attention. I'm done fucking suggesting that you do this either. We're past the point of suggesting, folks. The concept of a hippie, I think, has just been proven again 60 fucking years later to still be fake, to be a manufactured archetype, probably by the CIA, from some MIT fucking grad that the agency scooped up in Langley to create a character to very sneakily manipulate people to not have a resistance towards anything a government or a billion-dollar backed business is telling you to put in your body. And I am not against the vaccine. I'm not. I swear, I promise I'm not. I'm really not. Get vaccinated. Even if they are shooting us up with tracking devices, I ask you, what are you going to do? Just do it. Do you want to be socially ostracized? Do you want to be labeled a QAnon person? And here's the thing. Even if you're not, even if you're a rational, level-headed person, and you do have a healthy bit of skepticism, you express any of it, you receive that social ostracization, you get tarred and feathered, not in a good, fun, sexual way like I do with your mom, Bakak. You're going to be pushed into that QAnon shit, that alt-right stuff, that Proud Boy nonsense, whether you know it or not, because if everyone's telling you in society, you're a piece of shit, you think this, you think that, eventually you're just gonna believe it yourself, and then you're gonna become it, and then the cycle motherfucking perpetuates. I ask you to break that cycle, break free. I almost did that again. I gotta stop. Man, part of me thinks spiritually I am a different person. Do you feel me? But I'm not. But it doesn't matter what I look like, what I sound like, or who I am. What I'm presenting are the motherfucking facts. I myself was not expecting to find out that Neil Young is proof positive that the archetype of the hippie, the people who were the mouthpieces of the counterculture revolution, the thing you watched about in all these documentaries that almost but just couldn't completely shape the entire world, the thing that as more and more time goes on, more and more people uncover had so many bad elements of our own government giving Charles Manson LSD so they could carry out probably murders for hire that the CIA didn't want to get their hands involved in, or infiltrating the Black Panthers, or John Morrison's dad being, an admiral who worked in MK Ultra for something. All of these weird little things, like, oh, by the way, you remember Woodstock and, the octopus, or whatever that shadowy cabal group is, and fuck them again, cabal. I'll say it again, cabal, go fuck yourselves. Go fuck yourselves, Rockefellers. Go fuck yourselves, Carnegies. Go fuck yourselves, Rothschilds. Go fuck yourself with love from the Colin Coyle podcast. And keep on rocking in the free world while you still can. Defund Spotify. This programming was brought to you by the Mormon Church of Latter-day Saints.